Good morning, welcome back to our channel. This morning we're going to be building some business machines incorporating the equipment we have here. We've got an Antec VSK10 case, we've got an ASRock B450M Steel Legends motherboard, we've got the AMD 5600G CPU, we've got the Seagate Firecuda 520 500GB M.2 SSD. We've got a Cooler Master 650 watt V2 fully modular PSU. We've got the Viper gaming by Patriot DDR4 RAM, and that's a 16 gig kit with two 8. Let's get the system built. Okay, first thing we need to do is we need to get everything unboxed which we're going to be using, starting with the motherboard. This particular motherboard does not come with a built-in I/O shield. It is separate, so we need to install that in a short while. We won't need any of the other accessories because we've got no SATA hard drives going in, but we will need the M.2 screws. Put them to one side. Okay, these ASRock motherboards come with the foam protection actually cable tied to the motherboard, so we'll have to take that off first. Okay, once we've cut them, we just take them out. Then the motherboard just lifts out. So the first thing we're actually going to install in the motherboard is the CPU. So being the 5600G, it's got the built-in Vega graphics, which for a business machine, for what this is going to be used, is ideal. It means we do not need any dedicated GPU. With the spec that we've got, if the client does want to go with a dedicated GPU at a later date, it's very easy to upgrade and give them a performance boost. So we'll just open up the CPU, then the box, in the box we've got the CPU, and we've got the heatsink and fan, which has already got thermal paste applied. To be able to install the CPU and cooler, we do need to remove these current mounting brackets for the CPU cooler. So all we need to do is just unscrew them. Make sure you keep these bits which are taken off to one side, because if you ever have to replace the cooler, these might be needed. So always keep them with the rest of the items which come either in the box, which you might need. Just keep them safe. Once we remove the brackets, we can go ahead and install the CPU. Be careful not to bend any of the pins. You want to make sure that the CPU is in the correct orientation. So you look for the little triangle, and then you've got the mark on the motherboard here which you line up. Just make sure it slots in and just fold the lever down. We're then going to install the CPU cooler. Make sure it's lined up with the screw holes underneath, and we then just screw it in. I start all of the screws off. I will then go back round and tighten them all up afterwards to the right pressure. We then need to install the fan cable onto the right header. This one's got 2 CPU fan headers. I'm going to be putting it onto CPU fan 1. Okay. Next we're going to move on to the RAM. So like I said, we've got a 16 gig set, so 2 8 gig sticks, DDR4 3600 RAM. And this RAM matches the motherboard really nicely. It's got quite an industrial look to it. And we're going to install it in the slot furthest away first. Open the clips, push it in till it clicks, and then we're going to put it into the channel, which is the second one away from the CPU. Push it in till it clicks. That's fully seated. We're now going to install the M.2 SSD. This is a Gen 4 SSD. It's a shame the motherboard isn't a Gen 4 motherboard, or doesn't accept Pcie Gen 4 of these. So there won't be any bottlenecks between the storage caused by the storage. And then we need to get the little screw to hold in the M.2. There we go. That's the base part done. Now we just need to install it in the case and install the PSU. This case comes as with most cases with the polystyrene protection, just to protect it during transit. We'll just carefully remove it so we're not damaging the case. This case does not come with any acrylic or glass side panels. It is solid on both sides. it does come with a magnetic removable dust filter on the top, and on the bottom we've got another removable dust filter for where this PSU fan is. So, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to remove both sides so that we don't scratch the side panels. See, we've got plenty of room inside here for installing the equipment that we are going to be installing. Inside the case there's a little cardboard box which has got all of the screws and other accessories which you will need while installing. It's got a nice little bag of screws which we need. First thing we need to do to install the motherboard is make sure we've got all the standoffs in the correct places. So what you can do, you can check your motherboard to see where the holes are, hold it above, just see if which ones you're missing and install any addition. For this particular size motherboard we do need an additional 2 standoffs. Sometimes they don't go in very smoothly, just take it back out, try screwing it again. Again, once you've got all your standoffs in, you need to put your I/O shield in. Right. Just click it in, make sure it's in properly. And then install the motherboard. With this you have to be careful on the display ports because they've got a bit of metal on the sheath which actually gets in the way. If you install it wrong, a bit of metal will go inside the display port and will cause issues. So you need to make sure that that is not going to cause you any issues. And screw in the motherboard. Just got to check again to make sure it's not moved. Nope. Again, I don't screw them all in tight. We've got them all in place, just in case we need to have to take them out again or readjust, make the board square. You have to make sure that that the screws you're using are the correct ones, and that they do actually fit in your standoffs, because there's different screws in the box, and they've got different threads on, so they'll get in part way and then lock up, and you don't want to have to take the whole board out just to remove that one. Okay, so once all your screws are in, you just go around and make sure they're tight. Not too tight, you don't want to damage the motherboard. We can now plug in the rear fan onto the chassis fan header. It's just behind the iron block. We now need to install the power supply. Power supply is a Cooler Master 650 V2 fully modular power supply. It's more powerful enough for what we're going to be doing in this machine, and it can run a basic graphics card as well. The reason we went for this one is we wanted either modular or semi-modular so we can keep the cables tidy, and this is what was in stock at the price range. Right, all the power cables come in one bag. There's only two that we will need. We need the CPU one and the 24 pin one. Port one. I'm going to install the cables into the power supply before I install it, because the case has got a removable hard drive caddy, so you can do this afterwards, but it's a lot easier if it's plugged in prior to installation. So, okay. I am going to be removing the hard drive caddy because we don't need it, and to get the power supply in with the cables in, it's a lot easier. So it's just one thumb screw at the back and 4 screws underneath. Because we don't have any hard drives we're going to be installing in this PC, I'm just going to be removing this completely, and it's going to go in the box in case we need to install it at a later date, which will mean there's a lot more space for the cables in the bottom of the case. Once you've unscrewed it, you just slide it to one side and it just slides out. We can then install the power supply. Just slide it in, fan down so it can pull air in from the back sorry, in from the bottom and out of the back, because it's in its own little area. We then screw it in. Once we've installed the power supply, we need to route all of the cables. So the first one is the CPU cable, which just slots up at the top of the case, pops through, and then we can just clip it in. And then the same for the 24-pin one. So it just goes through the cable management hole and into the motherboard. And the only other cables we need to sort out are the front I/O. So we've got USB 3, again it goes through the same hole, and we just plug it in. The front audio, I'm going to have to bring it up the bottom of the case and plug it into the header, and then the power buttons and other front lights. These are all standard, so just get them on the right one. And the reset switch. And then power switch. LEDs, hard disk drive, well, hard disk drive, there's no hard drive in it, and then the power LEDs. Right. Make sure the cables are nice and tidy, and we are ready to power on the machine and install the operating system. Just plug in the power supply, plug in the HDMI connector directly onto the motherboard connector on the back, and we've got our keyboard and mouse. At this point we have not connected the network cable. Let's put it on and turn it on. Everything's spinning, and we are going to have to go into the BIOS. There we go. Okay, on this particular motherboard with this GPU and the RAM, if we go ahead and enable it, the Xmp Profile, it doesn't work. First thing we need to do is we need to upgrade the BIOS. I've already downloaded the ROM for the BIOS onto this pen drive. I'm just going to put it in the machine. We go to Tool under the BIOS and Instant Flash. It will then go through and find the software which you've downloaded, and we just click Update. The pen drive does need to be in FAT32 for it to work, and you just download the file, extract it and put it on the pen drive. the instant flash software will automatically find the software and install it. This will take a few minutes, so we'll just leave it to do its thing. Okay, once the BIOS has been flashed, we can just click OK to reboot the system. The system will reboot a few times before it actually boots properly. On this same pen drive, we've also got the latest copy of Windows which we're going to install, so I didn't even have to tell it which items to boot from. It's automatically booted from the pen drive into the Windows installation. What we're going to do is just going to go through the installation. I'm going to install it to the M.2. We will be installing the license key later, so at the moment I'm just going to say I don't have a product key, and I'm going to select the correct version, which is Windows 10 Pro. Click Next. We accept the license terms, click Next. Custom install, and we're just going to select the hard drive, click Next, and it's getting the drive ready for all of the OS. Just let this complete its installation. See you in a few minutes. Now that the base installation has happened, we'll just go through the configuration. As we're in the UK, we'll select the UK, and we'll just go for the UK keyboard. We're not going to add any other keyboards. Because we haven't connected to the internet, or the network cable, it's now asking us to connect to a network. I'm going to say I don't have internet, and I'm going to continue with limited setup. This is so that I can create a local user on this system, and I'm not going to apply a password at this precise second, that way I don't get all the security questions. There will be a password applied once we get within Windows. I'm just accepting or declining all the diagnostics and advertising options, and just getting that set up. Once that's done, it will then boot up into Windows, and we can connect the network cable, carry out the rest of the installation. Okay. Now we've booted into Windows, we're just going to get all of our default software on, get it updated, get the correct drivers on. This will take a few minutes. One of the final things that we need to do is we need to go in and enable the Xmp Profile. So at the moment the RAM is running at 2133. We need to make that run at the right speed, so we'll just restart and go to the BIOS. We go to OC Tweaker. We've got the load XMP setting, change it from auto to XMP2 Profile 1 to make it 3600. We exit, save our changes, and let it reboot. Check the memory speed, it is now 3600. We're going to build a few more of these machines for this client, and then we're going to take them to site, add them to their domain and install them for the other bits of software which they need, make sure everything's working. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified when we upload our new videos. Looking forward to seeing you next time.